History is no stranger when it comes to nations dissolving and splitting up. The Roman Empire split because it became too big and weak for one man to govern. The Soviet Union dissolved because the different republics that were previously held together by force and terror were given the tiniest amount of freedom, and Yugoslavia dissolved because of a single man in a glass bottle. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, for you are about to be taken on a wild ride. A ride full of deceit, horror, and lust. The year was 1985. Our protagonist, 56-year-old Dorde Martinovic, was sipping on some beer and working in his fields in Gilan, modern-day Kosovo. He was a simple man with a simple life, but on the fateful day of May 1st, he decided to partake in the tiniest amount of tomfoolery. You see, Mr. Martinovic was a tender man with the delicate heart of a hentai girl. His heart simply yearned for pleasure. So he put that beer bottle on a stick, drove it into the ground and sat on it. And pleasure he got, for about 5 seconds before the bottle shattered inside his ass, shredding his rectum. Mr. Martinovic's stroll along the fields of pleasure quickly took a sour turn down the alley of pain and nightmares. He somehow dragged himself to a nearby road where he was picked up by a good Samaritan and quickly taken to a hospital in Pristina where he forced every single person inside to pick their jaws off the ground. Oh my god, he's got a bottle shoved inside his ass! Oh, this is horrible, it's barbaric, oh, the humanity! Please tell us, Mr. Martinovic, who did this to you? The Albanians. I was just working in the fields, minding my own business, and all of a sudden a couple of Albanians came up to me, pinned me to the ground and shoved a bottle up my ass, because clearly I didn't do it. Why would I ever shove a bottle up my own ass, am I right? Yeah. I knew it! But because the doctors at Pristina were unable to extract the glass shards out of his ass, he was transported to Belgrade, the capital of Yugoslavia. Upon arriving in Belgrade, the doctors decided to take another look at Mr. Martinovic's wounds. The examination was carried out in the best hospital in the country by 2 doctors from Serbia, a doctor from Slovenia, a doctor from Croatia, and a doctor from North Macedonia, meaning the representatives of 4 out of the 6 total countries were present, making this a national scale examination. The doctors came to the conclusion that these wounds couldn't have been self-inflicted, and at least 2 people had to be present to carry out something like this, verifying Mr. Martinovic's story. This caused a massive uproar, and tensions between Serbs and Albanians rose like never before, which is why a month later another examination was launched under Professor Janez Milczynski, where his team concluded that these wounds were actually self-inflicted. But the problem is Milczynski had replaced the Macedonian doctor in the previous team, and Macedonia was also known to have tensions with Albanians. This was largely perceived by Serbs as the government's attempt to cover up Albanian barbarism, and caused even more uproar, which is why the fucking military decided to interrogate Mr. Martinovic, and after a shameful 3-hour-long interrogation, he finally confessed that the perpetrator behind this horrible crime was none other than himself. The mystery was solved, the case was closed, and the curtains finally dropped. Serbs and Albanians profusely apologized to each other, and everybody lived happily ever after. Except not at all, because a year later the bottle boy came back out of the closet and proclaimed that he had been a victim of a vicious hate crime and bribed into silence by the government. He was promised that his sons would be given government jobs, which were very scarce in Kosovo, but after the confession the only thing he got was shame upon his family. You see, at this point the situation had turned into a hot mess. The whole country was talking about it, it was jumping back and forth between masturbation and mutilation, and if the people had settled on him shoving a 500 milliliter beer bottle up his ass, he was never gonna live it down. Some Albanians could actually come and do it and nobody would believe him. He had a wife and 4 kids, he was a head of a family. Who would respect a family whose head attempted sodomy with a bottle and was promptly punished by God? One of his sons also came in clutch to help his dad by saying these vicious, beastly Albanians don't care who they attack, be it a saint or a prophet, as long as he's a Serb. My father was attacked simply because he committed a crime of being Serbian. And this, ladies and gentlemen, marked the beginning of the end. Dorde Martinovic quickly turned into the symbol of Serbian oppression and resistance. He was the Serbian Jesus, unfairly punished and silenced. But as the love for Dorde grew, so did the hatred for Albanians. Some claimed the Albanians are continuing what the Ottomans started 500 years ago. Fun fact, Vlad the Impaler actually learned impaling from the Ottomans when he was studying in Istanbul, but then ran to the fucking moon with it. Others just started dunking on Muslims in general, saying they're obsessed with assholes, hence they wash their ass every time they take a shit. Some even claimed the United States were behind all of this because everybody knows George Washington was Albanian and the USA is actually an Albanian satellite state, but one thing remains certain. The glass shards rubbing inside Mr. Martinovich's ass that day sent sparks flying throughout the entire nation, which lit the flames of hatred and set everyone ablaze. Funny, actually Yugoslavia was already very unstable after Tito's death and its fall was just a matter of time. Some retard throwing a bottle up his ass had nothing to do. Oh, but it did. Yeah, Yugoslavia's fall was like a telltale game, no choice would have prevented it, but it could have been more civilized, something like, "Screw you guys, I'm outta here. Eat shit, I'm outta here first. I've always hated you bastards, I'm done with you. God!" However, because of the pre-established tensions and weaponized hatred, it went in the worst way possible and became a hotbed for some of the worst atrocities since the Second World War. All because of a single man who gave himself a prostate exam with a glass bottle and blamed it on someone else. Okay kids, what did we learn today? That's right, don't shove bottles up your ass in areas of ethnic tension. In unrelated news, if this video gets 10,000 likes, I'll go to Karabakh, do this and blame it on the Armenians. I reckon it'll be hilarious, so if you wanna see it, consider liking and subscribing.